You should be grateful I even touched a plain and gloomy old woman like you. Sorry, but I have a young lover. It was a sudden event. Until now, my husband, who had been as kind as a gentleman, was shouting at me with a terrifying expression. This is the entrance of our home. Just having returned home, I was unable to comprehend the situation. What do you mean? I wish I could wake up if this is a dream. While trembling, I raised my voice as much as I could to the cruel man in front of me. That's what I said. I was never really interested in an old lady like you. I've already accomplished my purpose with this marriage. Receive the divorce papers and get out quickly. As if to overwhelm me further, my husband raised his voice again. Looking down at me and scolding me, he looked like a demon out of a hellish painting. What purpose? And telling me to leave this house, but this house is. Then, my husband revealed a shocking truth. I sold this house. I'm divorcing you and plan to live elegantly with the money and my young lover. I was speechless at the unexpected words. All the happy days we had spent together, the kind words and smiles of my husband I believed in, were all lies, just a means to achieve his goals. I had been deceived by my husband. He was about to grasp a new happiness, and I was dropped into the darkness of loneliness, losing everything. That was the ending my husband wanted for the two of us. However, if he knew my true identity, he would soon change his attitude. I understand. I vowed in my heart to make sure this man could never walk proudly under the sun again. From this moment, as I clenched my fist, my triumphant march began. My name is Samantha, 42 years old. I live in a high-rise apartment a little away from the city, and the glittering night view from the high floor is breathtakingly beautiful. My workplace is a trading company with its headquarters in a towering skyscraper in the city center, where I handle a multitude of clerical tasks daily, from creating documents and supporting sales staff to preparing for meetings. Though my life might seem glamorous, I am single with no lover. In a plain suit like that of a job-hunting student, with black hair tied up and black-rimmed glasses, no man comes near someone with my appearance. Furthermore, in the office, I am called an old maid behind my back, and female employees who leave on time to pick up their children at daycare push their work onto me. I haven't been able to leave work on time for several years. My days are spent commuting between home and work. The night sky I look up to every day gently embraces me. When I return home, the first thing I do is pray to the smiling portraits of my parents. It has become my morning and evening routine. Dad, Mom, I'm home. Of course, they always greet me kindly without a word. My parents passed away 10 years ago. They died in a collision between their car and a large truck. Human life is fleeting. No matter how much I called their names when I rushed to the hospital, they never came back. Having few relatives and no siblings, I am all alone in the world. I don't seek great happiness. I prefer a simple life. I don't desire luxury, I just hope to continue this life without losing anything more important. One day in April, after finishing overtime, I was walking home and felt the city was livelier than usual. The sky was completely dark, and the cold air made me shiver. However, the heat of the city did not cool down, and the flushed people were merrily making noise. Ah, today is Friday. Probably, parties are being held everywhere. Even at night, the street trees, bathed in numerous lights, are not allowed to sleep. And as I quickly headed home, something happened. A dull thud, and suddenly my vision was blocked. It smelled of alcohol. It seems I had bumped into a drunk person. As I apologized and tried to leave, a drunken man approached me. He rudely blew alcohol breath at me, probably complaining, but his words were slurred. Feeling frightened, I tried to escape, but the drunk's friends kept coming one after another. Surrounded by a circle of drunks, I couldn't move. That's when it happened. A man pushed through the group and rushed to me. He argued with the drunks for a few minutes. Thanks to his resolute attitude, the drunks did not resist any further. Then, he took my hand and started walking quickly. I couldn't see the face of the man, but as I followed the tall figure in a trench coat, my heartbeat gradually quickened. You're safe now. There are too many drunks tonight. They're usually weak, but when they drink, they act tough, especially towards women. It's despicable. He looked down at me with a refreshing smile. Embarrassed by being stared at so closely by such a handsome man, I couldn't raise my face. My heart was beating even faster, and I couldn't calm my flushed face. Are you okay? It must have been scary. But you can relax now. I'm at my limit. Being treated kindly by such a handsome man, I, who have no immunity to men, feel overwhelmed by shyness. I should leave quickly. Ah. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Excuse me. I turned my back on the man and started walking. Wait, please. It's dangerous for a woman to walk alone on the night streets. Let me walk you to the front of your house. The man chased after me. It's okay. Besides, I'm just an old lady. See, I might get hassled, but I won't get attacked. It was embarrassing enough that such a wonderful man was walking with someone like me. He grabbed my hand again. I instinctively turned around and looked up at him. For the first time, I saw his eyes. He was also staring at me. What are you talking about? It must have been scary going through that. I'm worried about you. I'll walk you home. Drawn into his clear eyes, I found myself nodding involuntarily. Thank you. Then, we engaged in light conversation as we walked home. His innocent smile warmed my heart, and I was thrilled by his kindness as he escorted me through steps and narrow paths. It was a first-time experience for me. Thank you so much. This is my home. The 15 minutes I spent with him flew by, and we arrived in front of the high-rise apartment where I live. Then, the man looked up at the apartment in surprise. It's no wonder. It's a high-rise apartment that you wouldn't imagine someone as plain as me living in. You live in such a beautiful apartment. Do you live here with your parents? Normally, I would hesitate to share personal details with a stranger, but I felt indebted to and could trust this man. My parents have passed away. I bought this apartment in my name because I'll probably be single for life. He smiled kindly at my laughter. Actually, can I offer you something in return for helping me today? It's unlike me to say such a thing. I was surprised at myself. But I truly wanted to thank him, and I also wanted to spend a little more time with this man. He nodded kindly, and we exchanged contact information before parting ways. His name is Patrick, 40 years old. True to his name, he is a kind and generous man. That night, I couldn't fall asleep. His calm smile kept returning to my mind, and before I knew it, I was thinking only of him. Even though I'm an old lady. At 42, romance had been a stranger to me, but I fell in love with him. Later, he accepted my invitation, and we dined at a French restaurant in a hotel. I can't let a woman pay. As I tried to pay, he stopped me and presented his own card. I intended to treat him, but ended up being treated instead. On another holiday, we went to an aquarium together. He likes fishing and marine sports and has a wealth of knowledge about fish, introducing me to a world I didn't know. Samantha, you are really humble and wonderful. It feels like a miracle that we met while both single. Sometimes, his shy smile made my face turn red. Thus, our relationship quickly grew closer, and we naturally fell in love. A few months later, he proposed to me. The proposal was during a dinner on a cruise ship with a popular night view. It was a scenario I had secretly longed for, and he gently offered me a ring. Staring back into his serious eyes, I nodded. It was a dreamlike Cinderella story. However, there was one concern I had about marrying him: children. At 42, it was possible that I might not be able to have children. As if seeing through my anxiety, he held my hand and whispered, "I want to be with you, Samantha. Even if we can't have children, we'll be happy just the two of us." He always enveloped me with kindness. I was constantly being saved by him. Thus, we married, and our happy life together began in the apartment I owned. 6 months passed. Our married life was going smoothly. We both worked hard during the day and spent quiet evenings together. However, my concerns were confirmed, and despite several attempts, we were unable to conceive. These things are meant to be. There's no need to rush, and you shouldn't blame yourself. Perhaps the cause could even be with me. My husband always encouraged me with his kind smile, despite my constant worries about age. Yet, I couldn't give up my dream. I wanted a child, even if just one. I then visited a renowned obstetrics and gynecology clinic to receive information on infertility treatments. There was an option for advanced infertility treatment, though it was expensive. It would require my husband's cooperation. However, he frowned upon the idea of infertility treatment and showed reluctance. We don't need to go that far. There are many happy couples without children. I don't desire a pregnancy that requires us to push ourselves so hard. He left the room coldly after saying that, and it seemed I had upset him. In my eagerness for a child, I might have pushed things too far on my own. We should have discussed it more as a couple. And perhaps I was too demanding about checking for ovulation days and seizing the opportunity. Surely, all my actions must have put pressure on him. After that, our marital life ceased, and my husband began to sleep with his back to me. It was my fault. I had angered my husband. Though it's too late to regret, our relationship remained unrepaired, and half a year passed. Hey, our first wedding anniversary is coming up, isn't it? How about we have dinner again? Remember, on that cruise ship. It's a weekday, so there are still seats available. We can still make a reservation for dinner now. Hoping to face each other again and enjoy a pleasant time like before. I bravely invited him, hoping it might bring his feelings back. Initially surprised and hesitant, he nodded when I said I would treat him this time. That's a good idea. It's nice to dine out occasionally. The food there was delicious, too. Seeing my husband's softened expression gave me some relief. So I immediately made a reservation and looked forward to the day. Then, the promised day arrived. I managed to finish work on time for the first time in a long while. And went home to change into a dress I usually don't wear, then headed to the meeting place. The sound of my heels bouncing made my heart flutter. My husband would surely be surprised to see me like this. I arrived at the boarding area at the harbor. There was no sign of my husband yet. I had arrived a bit early, so I decided to wait for him. Since we got married, we had stopped going on dates like this. But today was a special day. I waited excitedly for my husband to appear, feeling the same as I did back then. Passengers boarded one after another, but my husband was still not there. I checked the time. The departure time was approaching. No matter how many times I called, there was no response from my husband. And I began to feel increasingly anxious. I was approached several times by the cruise staff, but I could only wait for him. Then, the ship sailed exactly on time, and I was left alone at the harbor. Still, I waited, believing he would come. Before I knew it, 2 hours had passed without any contact from my husband. Had something happened to him? A foreboding feeling crossed my mind. Perhaps it would be easier to get in touch if I went home. With that thought, I hurried back. I prayed that my husband was safe. As I returned home praying repeatedly, I was shocked when I opened the front door, because an unexpected sight unfolded before my eyes. Hey, I'm late. Were you waiting for me all alone at the harbor this whole time? That must have been tough. Laughing derisively as if mocking me was definitely my husband. And for some reason, he was packing his belongings into a duffel bag. Why are you at home? You remember we had plans today, right? Ignoring my concerns, my husband burst out laughing. Ah, of course. How was it? Feeling abandoned alone at the harbor? Or did you take the cruise alone and eat a dinner for two? Clearly, this was not the gentle and calm husband I knew. What's going on? Why has he changed so drastically? I couldn't understand the situation. And what's with that dress? A 43-year-old hag trying to look appealing is just pathetic. Were you trying to lure me to bed with that? It makes me sick. I don't need you anymore. Oh, this must be a dream. This person isn't my husband. He would never say such cruel things. Despite telling myself this, my mind went blank. Why are you crying? I don't want to see an old woman's tears. I made a mistake marrying you. I should have chosen a younger, more vibrant woman. Before I knew it, tears were streaming down my cheeks. I wanted to wake up from this nightmare. My husband's taunts and harsh words grew worse. It was easy to deceive you. Just a few sweet words and you were hooked. When I first saw your house, I decided to take it over. Some plain office worker paying off a room loan, what a struggle. Thanks to that, the contract went smoothly. Stunned by my husband's unexpected words, I doubted my ears. Take over? What contract? As I trembled, my husband continued, delivering the final blow. The purpose of our marriage was to take this house. I was never interested in a plain old woman like you. But living with you was too boring. I thought I could live more elegantly, but being with a miser like you is not fun at all. Also, his yelling pierced my heart, one word at a time. He continued to raise his voice, uncaring. What about infertility treatment? It's too late for you. Be grateful that someone like you was even embraced. Actually, I have a mistress, and she's pregnant. My husband pulled out what seemed to be brand new baby clothes from his duffel bag. Youth is the key, after all. My lover is 23 years old. You understand, right? Just give up. Feeling drained, I could no longer stand and fell to my knees. Our finances were separate, our incomes and savings unknown to each other. But recently, my husband had been asking for more money for living expenses. To think it was for his mistress. Their affair started in a nightclub. He squandered my money there and succeeded in getting involved with her. The top girl at the time, and she became pregnant. She was fun to be around and good with money. So my self-indulgent husband continued to verbally abuse me, weakened as I was. I'm going to live in a different high-rise with her, so we're getting divorced. The sale of this house has already been arranged. You should get out as soon as possible. It was a terrifying scream. You can't just sell it on your own. His story was too surreal, and I raised my voice without thinking. It was quite a hassle. I had to visit the city office several times to get various documents. And the most troublesome was your certificate. Here, this. He threw my driver's license at me. It seems he took it from my wallet while I was asleep. He had also taken important documents like the house registration certificate and my social security card. He and his mistress, who had aged her face with makeup to look like me. went to the real estate agent with these documents. Could a real estate transaction really have been completed like that? A real estate agent's eye is not blind. My husband must be misunderstanding something. Anyway, what my husband did is a crime. If he really did it, it cannot be forgiven, so I must investigate thoroughly. My tears had stopped as if they were a lie, and I had already regained my composure. So, this house is no longer yours. I decided to take all the money after the sale. So you are no longer needed. I'll give you 3 days to pack your things and get out. My husband threw the divorce papers at me. My husband's section is already filled out. All right, I will submit the divorce papers. In return, can I have all my important documents back, including my driver's license and social security card? If the sale is complete, you won't need them anymore. My husband smoothly accepted my request and returned everything to me before leaving through the front door. He's probably heading to the high-rise where his mistress lives. I can never forgive him. This is nothing less than marriage fraud. As anger welled up inside me, I also regretted my foolishness for believing and marrying such a man, and tears flowed again. My husband was never truly looking at me, but rather at the prospect of a luxurious and elegant life in the high-rise. He had merely used me for that purpose. Alone, I went into the bedroom and collapsed onto the bed. I curled up in the fetal position, hugged myself, and closed my eyes, after which I remembered nothing. It seems I fell into a deep sleep, exhausted and shocked. 3 days later, I received a call from my husband. On the phone, he was indeed a different person from before, his voice harsh and loud as he shouted into my ear. Hey, you're ready, right? As promised, you're moving out today. I tried to calm my indignation at his harsh words, wondering why he would speak to me this way. Wait a minute. We were married for a year, weren't we? If we're going to part, I want to do it properly. Can I meet your mistress? I couldn't just step back meekly. I have my pride too. Surprisingly, my husband readily agreed to my request, and we arranged to meet at a cafe near the station. Hey, you poor, lonely old lady. This is my girlfriend. Unlike you, she's hundreds of times younger and cuter. As soon as my husband entered the cafe, he spotted me inside and raised his voice without caring about the other patrons sitting next to him. His mistress was enveloped in a strong perfume scent and wore a tight dress that clearly outlined her body, with bold makeup suitable for the night scene and her long golden hair swept aside. She laughed through her nose as if triumphant. You really are beautiful, quite different from me. How did you manage to impersonate me and go to the real estate agent? Flattered and pleased, the mistress began to chatter away. She had dyed her hair black just for that day and disguised herself with a hat and glasses. She added wrinkles to her face with eyeliner and, whenever spoken to by the real estate agent, she would only nod or shake her head without speaking. I just sat there. He did all the talking. This way, we'll get a lot of money, right? It's easy. Such a suspicious duo must have raised doubts among the real estate agents. Besides, selling a house isn't that easy. Impressive. There might be a call from the real estate agent to me soon. So could you tell me the name of the person in charge? The more she was flattered, the more the mistress got carried away. She was the perfect person for gathering information. One last thing. Are you really prepared to stay with my husband from now on? I looked intently into the mistress's eyes. Thick false eyelashes and heavy black eyeliner. It's amazing how much makeup she had applied. Of course. He's kind and has money. I can quit my tough night job and live luxuriously in a high-rise from now on. Also, I'm pregnant with his baby. The mistress's ultimate motive was apparently money. My husband, unaware of this, was smitten with his young girlfriend. I then presented them with the papers. However, they were just blank papers. Wait, why there aren't written anything? Hurry up and give us the proper ones. Otherwise, we can't get married. The mistress panicked more than expected. Was she that eager for my husband's wealth? Right. Since you have a child, I'll concede. A child should not be blamed for this. We'll submit this ourselves. As soon as I passed the divorce papers, the mistress hastily grabbed them, carelessly folded them, and stuffed them into her bag, sighing with relief. My husband sat proudly, as if victorious. I took one last look at their unsightly demeanor and stood up. Thank you. I wish you happiness. Also, wait a week before moving out. There are many arrangements to be made for water, gas, and other utilities. And it's simply impossible in 3 days. Reluctantly, my husband agreed. I left them in the cafe and walked away briskly. The place I hurried to next was a familiar real estate office. In fact, 3 nights before my husband declared divorce and changed completely, I received a call from an acquaintance who worked at that real estate office. The office my husband visited with his disguised mistress to sell the house was, ironically, one with which I had a long-standing relationship, and the person in charge was my acquaintance. The person in charge, who knew me well, was dumbfounded to see the disguised mistress. However, due to their position, they could not ask too detailed questions about non-business matters, and for fear of a complaint, they responded dispassionately at the moment, hesitant to finalize a sales contract with such suspicious individuals under my name. The person in charge instead urged the mistress to sign a mediation contract, not a sales contract. The ignorant duo, thinking it was a sales contract, mistakenly believed they had finalized a sale, and left the real estate office in high spirits after the mistress signed. There's a reason I have a familiar relationship with the real estate office. In fact, I am the owner of this high-rise and own several other properties. My total assets amount to $130 million. Therefore, my relationship with the real estate office is deep. Everyone might wonder how such a plain office worker could own so much real estate. It is the result of inheriting my parents' wealth and my earnings from stocks and investments. Spending money isn't just about splurging in nightclubs. Even if it starts small, saving diligently can eventually lead to a significant amount. Even after getting married, I always had a reservation in my heart about trusting my husband completely. Revealing my true identity might cause a good marital relationship to fail. Knowing about the money might change his personality. Fearing the worst, I kept important matters secret and only told my husband where the documents were, in case something happened. I never thought he would misuse it. It seems that my husband found the deed to the house in the drawer containing the documents, and came up with this wicked idea. I am also to blame for not realizing what kind of man he was before we married. However, what my husband did was a crime. I confirmed this with the real estate agent. His actions should not be forgiven. Afterwards, I distributed his photo to several real estate agents I am familiar with. Information spread rapidly, and he was blacklisted as a fraud suspect by all real estate businesses in this area. Sure enough, my husband was arrogantly visiting real estate agents, thinking he would soon make a fortune from selling the house. He is oblivious to what is actually happening behind the scenes. Then the promised week passed. My ex-husband came to my home with his mistress, believing that the divorce papers were processed, and they were finally going to take possession of the house. Full of joy and expectation, he opened the front door as if he owned the place. However, a harsh reality far beyond his imagination awaited him. Hey, what's going on? What happened to moving out? I told you to leave within this week. Only my ex-husband's belongings were left at the entrance. I had not prepared to move at all. The two of them became furious and started shouting. This is my house. You are the ones who should leave. Look, I've packed your things, so take them and leave quickly. No matter how much they raged and hurled insults, I kept my cool. Reminding myself to stay calm, I took a deep breath. Don't talk nonsense, you crazy old woman. I told you. I've already sold this house. I handled all the procedures. I can even show you the proof. With his face turning red and looking like he might leap at me any moment. My ex-husband had eyes filled with more fury than a drunk I once encountered. But I faced him without flinching. What's with that attitude? If you can't listen to what I'm saying, maybe I should shut you up for good. You crazy old woman. My ex-husband charged at me from the entrance. At that moment, the real estate agent appeared from the living room. Please wait a moment. You are misunderstanding something. The house has not been sold yet. The procedures are still ongoing. The agent stepped between my ex-husband and me, stopping his advance. Thinking of the worst-case scenario, I had asked him to be present. What now? I definitely signed the contract that time. Or are you saying you tricked us? Are you a con artist? I'll sue you. My ex-husband grabbed the agent by the shirt. The agent tried to calm him down, but my ex-husband's anger only grew. This gentleman is a real estate agent I always rely on. He hasn't committed any crime, he's just doing his job properly. My words seemed to enrage my ex-husband even further, and he continued to rant. I didn't tell you, but I own this apartment building. There's no one in the local real estate market who doesn't know me. It was foolish of you to try to sell the house in such a ridiculous disguise, without any knowledge. At that moment, my ex-husband's complexion changed, and he fell silent. What you've done is a crime. If anyone is to be sued, it's you. I've already filed a report with the police. Your arrest is only a matter of time. In fact, at the cafe, I was recording everything with a voice recorder. The mistress spoke freely in response to my questions. And combined with documents from the real estate agency and security camera footage, I had all the evidence needed. This is a clear case of fraud. Sweat poured from his forehead, and his face, red as a volcano ready to erupt, showed he was about to lash out at me like a ferocious beast. The agent struggled to hold back my ex-husband. Changing his target of rage, my ex-husband attempted to hit the agent. At that moment, with a dull thud, my ex-husband's body flew through the air and fell to the floor. Ouch. What are you doing? Unbeknownst to him, that agent is a skilled judo player. To prevent further harm and to calm my ex-husband down, a light shoulder throw was executed. It was in self-defense. For safety, we have cameras installed in this room. And this will serve as solid evidence. My ex-husband found himself cornered. Then, as if all strength had left his body, he collapsed on the floor, sprawling out and looking up at the ceiling. Wait, what's going on? What is this all about? I participated in that charade, wearing a disguise, because you said we were going to get a fortune. And now you're telling me I won't get a penny? On top of that, am I a criminal now? I was just deceived by this old man. I haven't done anything wrong. From her previously triumphant demeanor, the mistress now looked panicked, her eyes darting around. I was foolish to trust someone like you. You penniless old man. You were just after the money all along, weren't you? The pregnancy was a lie. If we had gotten married and secured the fortune, you would have claimed a miscarriage and left me. I'm not interested in an old man like you." Everyone was shocked by the mistress's words. Who would have thought that the mistress was also a marriage fraudster? "You're so creepy, drooling over a young woman. You perverted old man. I'll gather your belongings and leave them outside the entrance. So take them and get out of my house." After screaming at the top of her lungs, the mistress stormed out the door. The sound of her heels echoed down the hallway. Eventually, it faded away, and silence returned. "I apologize. This is how things stand. I will never appear before you again. I will leave this town. So, could you please not press criminal charges?" My exhausted husband made a last desperate plea, rubbing his forehead on the floor. But no matter how much he apologized, it was too late. I rejected his request to forgive him, insisting that he must pay for his crimes. Thus, our conflict came to an end. Later, I heard that my ex-husband and his mistress were arrested. They resisted until the end, denying the allegations. But the numerous pieces of evidence led to their arrest. Months later, spring returned again. I was single once more, continuing my routine of commuting between home and work. One day, I received a call from the real estate agent. He wanted to talk to me. So, we agreed to meet at a nearby park. On a calm afternoon during the weekend, we sat next to each other under a cherry tree. I sensed something different about him. He seemed nervous. I wondered what was on his mind. Suddenly, he stood up. "I've been in love with you for a long time. But because of my position, I couldn't express my feelings. However, I won't hide them anymore. I've decided to let you know. So no terrible man can take you away again." His cheeks were flushed, and he looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Almost like a young boy. It seemed he had cared about me for quite some time. Actually, he was the second son of a well-known major real estate company president. Thinking it was inappropriate to fall in love with an important client, he had suppressed his feelings for me. His family was wealthy, and the company would be inherited by his older brother. Now that he was set to start his own business, he saw it as an opportunity to express his feelings. "You should be yourself more. Do things you enjoy, wear clothes you like, and enjoy both your work and private life." In reality, my plain appearance was just a facade. Following my parents' teaching to not flaunt wealth, I had hidden my true self. "I know your true beauty. I saw you at a real estate party once, dressed very elegantly. And you were the center of attention among the men. To me, you have always been someone out of my reach. Now that I am starting my own business, I intend to become a man worthy of you." To think that someone who truly saw me was so close. Looking directly at me, I nodded with a smile. The falling petal seemed to be celebrating with us. Is your fertility treatment going well? Oh, but there's no point for you anymore since you don't even have a partner, huh? At the company's anniversary party, those harsh words were directed at me by Ethan, my ex-husband, who looked down on me as infertile after having a child with his mistress, and unilaterally breaking up with me. That's quite something to say, considering we've broken up. Ah. Is this the infamous barren lady? Yes, it's her. The aunt who couldn't fulfill her role as a woman, my ex-wife. They both looked at me and burst into laughter. If that's how they were going to behave, I had my own thoughts. How about you? How's everything going with the company? Of course it's going well. It's me, after all. Really? Well, that might change starting tomorrow. What? What do you mean? As I tilted my head, I revealed the truth to my puzzled ex-husband. His face turned pale instantly. My name is Kate Anderson. I work at a cosmetics manufacturer. I married Ethan when I was 32 years old. By societal standards, that might be considered late. The main reason I didn't get married until I was 32 was because of my overcommitment to work. I started my current job right after graduating from university at the age of 22. Back then, I was desperate to be recognized quickly. I've always been competitive, and I think my ambition was exceptionally high compared to others. I volunteered for big projects and worked tirelessly. That was my vitality for living. I often traveled across the country for work, leaving me no time to play. Working from morning until midnight, and there were years I don't even remember taking a break. Some might think it sounds like a toxic company, but I loved my job and never felt burdened by it. However, the surrounding voices, feigning concern, were critical of me. People who live for work seem to have no fun. Don't you want to get married soon? You won't be able to have children if you wait too long. I was honestly fed up. Everyone has their own values, so I wish they would just leave me alone. Arguing back would only lead to more nagging. Whenever this kind of conversation came up, I would just give a wry smile and quickly leave the scene. Having dedicated most of my life to it, I reached a significant position in the company at a young age. Finally, I could start taking regular breaks, and my personal life began to have some room to breathe. By then, I was already 32 years old, and it had been 15 years since I last had a boyfriend. I didn't have a strong desire to marry, but the thought of being single for life was sad. I hoped to find a good partner somewhere deep down. And then I met Ethan. We both enjoyed reading and met at an autograph event for a popular author. The autograph event was crowded, resulting in a long wait. Perhaps bored during the wait, Ethan, who was standing behind me, struck up a conversation. It's quite a wait, isn't it? Do you often come to these signings? Yeah, it's been about 30 minutes already. This is my first time at an autograph event. I just happened to be off work. Same here. It's also my first time. By the way, which novel do you like the most? I guess I like this one the most. Me too. It's my favorite novel. Ethan's eyes sparkled as he spoke. In this way, we hit it off, exclaiming, that line was moving. And the ending was unexpected, making our conversation very lively. As we talked, my turn came quickly. After we both got our autographs, Ethan said as we were about to leave, I really enjoyed talking with you today. Could you give me your contact details, if that's okay? Thinking it was some sort of a fate, I happily agreed, and we made plans to meet again. Our first date was very engaging, and we had a truly enjoyable time. As we continued to date, I began to see more of Ethan's personality. He was 5 years younger than me. He worked as a salesperson at the same cosmetics manufacturer as me. He wanted to keep work and private life separate, preferring not to talk about work in his free time. I agreed with this sentiment. It was nice to have a common hobby, but we were both only children, had been without significant others for a long time, and had similar ways of thinking, which made us feel close to each other. Gradually, I felt at ease being with Ethan. He was a bit absent-minded and often forgot things, but I found these traits endearingly youthful. For me, who had no time to date before, going out with Ethan was a fresh and fun experience. I was quite thrilled about this new romance. About 6 months after meeting Ethan, he said, I'd like you to meet my parents sometime. What? I want to marry you, Kate. Is that okay? Though taken aback by the suddenness, I loved Ethan and saw no reason to refuse. Things progressed smoothly, and I met his parents. You are really beautiful. I never thought the day would come when Ethan would introduce a girlfriend. He must really like you. It's nice to see Ethan so happy. We look forward to being with you. I was praised so much by his kind parents that I was both happy and embarrassed. Blushing throughout the encounter, Ethan proudly said next to me, "She doesn't look 5 years older than me, does she? She's a real witch." Although it sounded slightly rude, Ethan meant it as a compliment. I was relieved that the meeting with the parents went smoothly. Life with Ethan was ordinary and calm. However, change was on the horizon for us. "Kate, don't you want kids?" My husband, aware that I was already 35, hesitated a bit before bringing it up. "Children. Of course, I don't dislike children, and I do want to be a mother. However, at this age, the risks associated with pregnancy after 30 are reportedly high." As I struggled to find the right words, my husband, looking anxious, said, "Is it a no?" "Of course, your health comes first. If you think it's too much, we can stop right away." He then rustled through his bag and pulled out a bunch of brochures from various fertility clinics. Usually, he isn't one to research things, but it seemed he really wanted a child. He had carefully selected the information, considering my situation. Seeing him like this made me feel that I wanted to have a child for him, for us. "No, it's not bad. Let's start trying to conceive." "Really?" "Thank you. Let's give it our best." The following week, we went to the hospital for a thorough checkup. The results would be told later, leaving us with a week of anxious waiting. Finally, the day came to learn the results. I'm mostly fine, it seems. They just told me to get a rubella vaccination. I see. I have polycystic ovary syndrome. What's that? It means I have more eggs than other people. It makes ovulation difficult and conception challenging. My husband's demeanor visibly sank, and he was at a loss for words. Seeing him like this, I quickly reassured him. "Ah, but you know, this condition is common. They told me that with hormone treatment to make it easier to conceive, there's a good chance of getting pregnant." "That's great. So, we start the treatment now." Though I felt a bit down about being told I have difficulty ovulating, hearing that pregnancy was still possible was reassuring. Thus, we began hormone therapy and officially started our journey to conceive. Despite our age, we initially tried timing methods several times, planning to move on to artificial insemination or IVF if those failed. However, even after months of following the doctor's timing advice, I wasn't getting pregnant. What could be wrong? It can't be helped. Becoming discouraged is the worst thing. Let's take it slow, no need to rush. You're right. At first, he was encouraging and actively helped with hospital visits. But after half a year, things began to change. The in-laws started saying they wanted to see a grandchild. It all started with a phone call from my mother-in-law. "Hey, Kate, I don't mean to be rude, but you're over 30, aren't you? Are you seriously thinking about children? We've started fertility treatments, but it's not going so well." "Oh, I see. I apologize if I'm being rude. But you know, Ethan has always been lonely as an only child, and he said he needs at least 2 children. For his sake and ours, please try your best." With that, the call ended. I wish she understood the difficulty of even having one child, let alone more. Even so, the pressure didn't stop there. Each month, the appeals from my mother-in-law continued. Alone, I would let out a deep sigh. I discussed it with Ethan, mentioning the pressure from his mother to have grandchildren. But he just laughed it off. "Moms like that, huh? Well, can't be helped. You're getting on in age, so she's probably worried." If we have a kid soon, that'll solve it, huh? His words, though likely without malice, pierced my heart. Still, we kept trying to conceive for a while, but there was no sign of pregnancy. Gradually, Ethan seemed to lose interest. He used to come home early for our fertility efforts, claiming overtime now, and came home late. We had agreed to limit our alcohol intake, but he soon broke that promise too. Moreover, perhaps thinking it pointless if I couldn't get pregnant, our intimate moments significantly decreased, making the environment for conceiving virtually non-existent, and we fell into a vicious cycle. Still, I couldn't give up on having a child. So I decided to do what I could until Ethan was ready to cooperate again, starting to prepare my body for pregnancy. Every morning, I drank warm water to warm up my body, took folic acid supplements, exercised moderately, and paid attention to my diet. The fertility clinic had given me some timing instructions, saying, "Come after your next period ends," so I continued visiting alone without fail. Then, the doctor said, "We'd like to move to the next stage. So could you both come to the hospital next time?" Would Ethan come with me? Feeling a bit anxious, I decided to consult with him. "Hey, Ethan. The doctor wants us to move to the next step, so we both need to come in for an explanation." "The next step?" "It's time for artificial insemination. Your mom wants a grandchild, and I'm not getting any younger. The doctor thinks we should go ahead with it. The sooner, the better. So, can you come with me next time?" "Puh, do I really have to go?" Sounds like a hassle. Did he just say it was a hassle? All he has to do is listen, while I go through surgeries and injections. That's awful. Also, it would be nice if he told his mother to stop pressuring us for grandchildren. If that were the case, it might relieve some of my stress. Overwhelmed by anger, I couldn't figure out where to start speaking and fell silent with a sullen expression. Noticing this, Ethan tried to appease me. "Joe, it's just a joke, don't be mad. I'll think about the dates again." However, days passed, and Ethan never seemed to consider a date for the hospital visit. Whenever I suggested a date, he found reasons to refuse to go. "Do you really want children? After showing so much desire, why refuse all of a sudden?" Feeling nearly crushed by anxiety, I decided we needed to talk. "Are you planning to give up on trying for a child?" Ethan pondered a bit with his arms crossed and then casually said, "Well, yeah. Honestly, work is so busy right now, I can't focus on that. Sorry, but can we just stop trying for a baby for now?" His nonchalant response left me unable to stay silent. Were all the money we spend on fertility treatments and the pain I endured to be in vain? Are we giving up so soon? Don't we have limited time? I had so much more to say. But I'm already 35, you know? The older I get, the higher the risks of pregnancy and childbirth. And your mother keeps calling. What should I do?" I told him all this rapidly, driven by my anger. "What's with you, Kate? You're rushing too much. Just ignore my mom. Anyway, let's just stop for now. Are you really quitting after all our efforts? What can I do? Besides, it's your infertility that's the problem, right? If you weren't infertile, we would probably have kids by now and my mom would be relieved." As he started to walk away, dismissing me as infertile, I called out in desperation, "Wait, just a minute." Then he said, "What? Are you frustrated? Since when did you become so persistent?" "Oh, right. There are popular brothels for women these days. If you're frustrated, go let it out there. I won't get mad." With those derogatory words, he walked away. Tears rolled down my cheeks from frustration and irritation. Being spoken to like that, how can I ever bring up a trying for a baby or a children again? Eventually, our efforts to conceive naturally came to an end. Calls from my mother-in-law continued asking, "How about grandchildren?" But I just deflected and avoided the topic. Eventually, she stopped calling. She probably gave up. The topic of children naturally became taboo between Ethan and me, and we stopped discussing it. The end of our efforts to conceive changed the dynamic between my husband and me. He became distant and seemed disinterested in me. "Hey, why have you become so cold?" One day I asked him this, and he responded with shocking words. "I'm busy with a new job, remember? I told you before." "What? A new job? You didn't tell me." "Ah, maybe I just mentioned being busy." The news of Ethan's job change surprised me. I had no idea he had changed jobs. Since before our marriage, we agreed to completely separate private life from work, so we never bring up work at home. Still, couldn't he have consulted me a little about it? That's honestly what I thought. But being married doesn't mean we have to share everything, and fortunately, we don't have kids. We keep our finances completely separate, so there's no real change in my daily life. I decided it was okay. Though I was curious about where Ethan's new job was and whether his salary had changed, I chose not to ask. I thought it was better for both of us not to know. However, I didn't realize this job change would lead to an unexpected situation. That would become clear only later. Time passed. One day, as I went to work, the HR director approached me. "Isn't this your husband?" he asked. Looking at the resume, I saw a photo of Ethan with his hair perfectly styled and a determined look. "That's definitely my husband. He's been working at the LA branch for a little while." "Did you refer him to this company?" "No, not at all. I heard he had changed jobs, but I had no idea it was to our company. He was at a different branch and in a different job role, and I knew no one at Ethan's branch. Our company employs 3,000 people nationwide. Unless someone works at the same branch, it's surprisingly easy to remain unaware of new hires. I happened to find out about Ethan's employment due to my position, but he likely had no idea. It was surprising to learn this. But thinking about it, it's not strange for him to end up at our company, a major cosmetics manufacturer in our area, considering we both work in the same industry. There's something concerning about him that I need to discuss." Listening to the director, I couldn't believe my ears. "My husband did that? Aren't you going to talk to him?" "For now, please keep it a secret from people at the same branch as my husband. I don't want them to feel awkward." "Understood." I asked the HR director to keep my husband's employment confidential. I planned to discuss it with Ethan when I got home. With that thought, I returned home. When I arrived, Ethan hadn't come back yet. It was 8 p.m. "He's late." While waiting for Ethan to come home, a message from him arrived. "Got a welcome party today, so I'll be late." I sighed and replied, "Okay." I waited for a while, but Ethan didn't come home until about 4 a.m. the next morning. In the end, I couldn't talk about work. The following day, and the day after, Ethan returned home late. And there was never a good time to talk about his job. Moreover, ever since Ethan transferred to my company, his returns home have become extremely late. He says he's working overtime every day, and often doesn't come home on weekends because of business trips. Is his branch really that busy? Even on the rare occasions we are both home, Ethan seems indifferent. "Have you been busy lately?" "Sort of. What's for dinner?" was his response. Ethan's attitude seemed arrogant. No matter what I say, his replies are always non-committal like, or, "Oh really?" I never got the chance to bring up the workplace conversation. Then, one day, Ethan said, "We need to talk." I was initially happy to be approached by him after so long. But from his expression, it didn't seem to be good news. "My girlfriend is pregnant. I want a divorce." What? My mind went blank. What do you mean? "I got someone pregnant at my new job. She's much younger and cuter than you. I even told my mom about her, and she was happy, thinking maybe now I'd have a child. This has to be a joke." Did his mother know? Is that why the calls stopped? I had suspected Ethan's recent behavior was odd, but I never imagined he was actually having an affair. And it hasn't even been a year since he changed jobs. He had an affair and made a child in such a short time? I can't believe it. Since when? About a month after I joined the company. She was a new employee, and I was hired at the same time, so we hit it off. If Ethan started dating her about a month after joining, that coincides with when he suggested we stop trying for a child. I thought it was strange to suddenly stop trying for a child when he had wanted one so badly. But I never imagined he was seeing someone else. I was speechless and just stood there. "Here, this is the divorce papers." He handed me the divorce papers unilaterally. "Fine, let's get divorced. Glad you're being quick about it. Don't worry about the compensation, I'll pay you a fair amount." Although I was disgusted by his condescending tone, I wasn't struggling financially. So I refused the compensation. I just wanted to get away from him as quickly as possible. Thus, our divorce was settled without any issues. I wonder what all those years together were even for. It ended so abruptly. 3 days after the divorce was finalized, I moved out of the house and stayed in a hotel until I found a new place. Ethan apparently started living there with his mistress. 2 weeks have passed. While my heart has not yet healed, I found a new place and am ready to start anew just as. My company's anniversary party was about to take place. When I arrived at the venue, it was crowded, and I wandered around looking for my seat. Then, a familiar figure approached me with wide eyes. "Huh? What are you doing here?" It was my ex-husband, Ethan. Next to him stood a pretty young woman in her early 20s, with a noticeable bump in her belly. "Who is this?" she asked, tugging at Ethan's clothes. From her behavior, I immediately knew she was the mistress. Ethan, unaware that I worked at the same company, seemed very surprised to see me there. "Ah, I didn't tell you. The place you transferred to is where I work." "Huh? Why didn't you say anything? You didn't tell me you were changing jobs either. You didn't even tell me the name of the company, right?" I replied calmly. Whatever. It's disgusting to think I'm working at the same company as you. I thought I was finally rid of you. I'm more disappointed that we ended up at the same company. You should just quit your job, huh? You're single anyway. You could manage without a job. I have a family to think about. I can't quit." In front of his girlfriend, Ethan was overly aggressive with his words. Seeing this, his mistress chimed in. "A stalker? Scary." No, I was here first, so if anyone's the stalker, it's Ethan," I thought to myself, but held back. It seems Ethan's mistress is quite the fool. Man, I'm still shocked. To think I have to see your face again. Good thing we're at different branches. I couldn't stand bad rumors. I didn't want to see your face either. If there are any strange rumors, it's because of what you did, right?" Annoyed by hitting too close to home, Ethan frowned. "By the way, how's the fertility treatment going?" "Oh, right, there's no point in you continuing without a husband." "Oh, Ethan told me. His wife is a barren old hag." The two of them looked at me and started laughing. Apparently, they still haven't realized the position they are in. I sighed and asked, "How about you? Everything going well?" "What are you talking about? Work? Personal life?" "As you can see, I'm doing great." "Unlike you," Ethan replied with an obnoxious smirk. The foolish woman cheered, "Ethan, you're so cool." Both of them seem to live in a fantasy world. And I can't help but laugh because they really do deserve each other. Thinking that I was married to such a man and lost to such a woman makes me feel pathetic. Oh, things are going well? But that might not be the case starting next month. I said this with a sly smile. My ex-husband looked startled. What do you mean? Well, it's my turn next. Ignoring my puzzled ex-husband, I stood up and walked towards the stage. Seeing me start to walk, the employee hosting the event said, "Next, we will have a speech from Executive Director Suzuki." I took the microphone and began my speech. My ex-husband and his mistress stood frozen, watching the whole process. Learning that I am an executive director of the company, Ethan seemed to panic. Even from a distance, I could tell from his lips moving that he was saying, "This is bad." In fact, I have been serving as an executive director at this company for the last 6 months. Thanks to everyone. Our company will celebrate its 30th anniversary on the specified date. After reading the speech I had prepared in advance, I finished my duties for the day. Now, it was finally time for my revenge. After I finished my speech, Ethan rushed over to me, with his mistress of course following closely behind. You are an executive director?" "Yes, that's right. I was promoted half a year ago." "There was a personnel announcement, but you didn't see it?" "That's ridiculous. I just joined, and I haven't had any transfers. So why would I look at personnel announcements?" Apparently, he hadn't bothered to check because he didn't expect any transfers. He didn't even remember the names of his own company's executives. It's really astonishing. Well, you should start looking at them because you're going to be transferred. Huh? He stared at me, dumbfounded. You seem to be quite disliked at the branch you work at. I've received numerous complaints from many staff members. What do you mean? Seeming to realize what this might entail, Ethan started to fumble. Let me read some of the complaints. Let's see. He makes a lot of sexual harassment comments that are uncomfortable. He jokingly touched my butt. He says he's going out, but then goes to lunch with female employees and doesn't return. Claims entertainment expenses for large sums spent at nightclubs. Pushes hard tasks onto others, has an arrogant attitude, and the list goes on. I had been briefed by the HR director beforehand, so I read these comments from my smartphone. Ethan, hearing this, turned pale and trembled. Given all this information, I really have to consider disciplinary action, don't I? But that's... Ethan, did you really do those things? His mistress, apparently unaware, was shocked. While she looked on, Ethan tried to come up with an excuse, but only managed to stutter, "Well, that's why your transfer has been arranged. You're moving to the Korea branch next month." Korea? You can't be serious? Both were shocked by the unexpected overseas assignment. Our company's Korea branch is a new and challenging office where a lot of hard work is required. The Korea branch has many staff, and without speaking some Korean, it will be hard to communicate with locals. This is well known within the company. Well, someone who doesn't even remember the name of their own company's executive director might not be aware of this. It's a kind of demotion, really. However, if he performs well there, a promotion could be considered. It's a high-risk, high-return scenario. But for a soon-to-be father and his new wife, it will be a tough choice. It's true. Do your best, okay? Please, we were married, remember? You're an executive director, right? You can fix this, can't you? Please, I apologize for everything up to now. You know, don't you? I'm having his child. Please forgive Ethan. I can't raise it alone. Despite their earlier confidence, both my ex-husband and his mistress were now tearfully begging me to change their situation. However, I had no intention of forgiving them after all the apologies. If they hadn't behaved so terribly earlier, I might have considered different arrangements for the sake of their unborn child. But given their horrible attitudes, I decided not to change their treatment. I've thought about this a lot. I was betrayed by Ethan and wondered if I should forgive him. I wanted to reconsider his situation for the sake of the child, but I've decided against it. Thanks for making my decision easier. This can't be. Unable to stand there any longer, my ex-husband collapsed. Ignoring the pleading looks of my ex-husband and his mistress, I left the scene. Later, the transfer of my ex-husband to the Korea branch was officially announced. He struggled with the decision to move to Korea, but eventually, he chose to resign on his own. He couldn't leave his child and new wife behind in the US. Ultimately, Ethan, who had just changed jobs, ended up resigning and became unemployed. He now lives in a cheap apartment and works multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet. As for me, work is my lover now. I think about dating again sometime, but it doesn't seem like I'll have time for that anytime soon. But honestly, I enjoy being immersed in my work. You take your son and get out of this house immediately. From now on, I'm going to live here with my mistress. When my husband, who had been having an affair at work, brought his mistress home, I was completely taken aback by the sudden turn of events. I had married my husband and had a child. And due to the wishes of my husband and mother-in-law, I became a homemaker. Despite being fed up with my meddlesome mother-in-law, I had supported my husband for many years. However, my husband didn't care about me at all and had his own affairs outside. Actually, she's pregnant. I have no use for you anymore, so let's get a divorce. My husband, who got another woman pregnant, demanded a divorce without any apology. The selfishness of my husband and his mistress made my blood boil. How much more could they disrespect me? She's just more compatible with me, both in personality and physically. My husband had a smug grin on his face. I've let you have an easy life as a homemaker for so long. You shouldn't have any complaints, right? Hearing my husband's words, I was dumbfounded. The mistress also commented, "Really, being a homemaker must be nice. I envy you. And you know, other people's belongings look so appealing, making me just want them." Hehe. The mistress hinted that she seduced my husband herself and didn't seem guilty at all. I'm really happy right now. I'll share some of my happiness with you. The mistress looked triumphant towards me. Is that so? Then I'll also give something back to the two of you. As a return gift, I gave them tickets to a one-way trip to hell. My name is Gina Manning, and I am a 40-year-old homemaker, raising my 13-year-old son, Nathan. I have always been somewhat reluctant to rely on others as the eldest daughter among 3 siblings. Both of my parents worked, so I had been helping my mother from a young age, and developed a habit of doing everything by myself. I met my husband Kevin at work when I was 22 years old after graduating from university. We were colleagues and gradually got closer as we went out for drinks and shared work frustrations and worries. A year later, Kevin asked me out, and we started dating. I am a responsible type, often relied upon by others, while Kevin is more laid back and less dependable. I mostly ended up listening to Kevin's complaints when we were together. But we were comfortable like friends without any tension. Independent and reliable girls, like you, are my type. I don't like girls who are too clingy. Kevin always said that. And he was doing well at work, being entrusted with more responsible tasks. 2 years into our relationship, when a junior named Mandy Hansen joined the company, I was assigned to be her mentor. Mandy was small and cute, with big eyes, and delicate like a modern-day newscaster. Idolized by the male staff as if she were an actual idol. While Mandy was doted upon by the men, she was disliked by the women for flirting and acting cute. When she encountered problems, she would always come to me first. So I cherished her and took good care of her. Additionally, Mandy had a way of relying on others that somehow never felt bothersome. Thank you for always teaching me so thoroughly. I admire you and want to be a career woman like you. I even bought the same pen as you to be like you. With that, she showed her pen and giggled innocently. Mandy effortlessly made such charming comments that could even make a woman like me swoon, possibly leading the male staff to misunderstand her affections. I might look this way, but I'm actually quite aggressive. I confess to people I like. A bit of a challenge makes it exciting. Saying that, she giggled. No man would feel bad being approached by Mandy. She was cute enough to be envied by women. Moreover, Mandy had a cunning way about her that made others inadvertently help her with her work. When Mandy made a mistake, I would follow up. And finding the right balance in my sternness was challenging as she would tear up easily. At work, the male staff would tell me, "Please don't bully Mandy." Meanwhile, the female staff would say, "Don't spoil Miss Hansen." This put me in a difficult position. Meanwhile, Mandy seemed oblivious to the atmosphere around her. Seeing me struggling, Kevin would kindly express his concern. "Don't push yourself too hard. I'm worried about you, Gina." At such times, my usually unreliable husband seemed dependable. In that year, at the age of 25, I married Kevin, but continued working for a while. Kevin helped with household chores, and our life together was peaceful. 2 years later, at 27, I was delighted to find out I was pregnant. I wanted to continue working as I found fulfillment in my job. But my traditional mother-in-law strongly objected. A wife should silently support her husband from behind. Always remember to be grateful to your husband. If women become too forward and work outside, they'll neglect their husbands and homes, leading to nothing good. Thus, pressured by my mother-in-law, I reluctantly quit my job and became a full-time homemaker, diligently managing the household and childcare, while my husband helped with the chores when we both worked. He did nothing to help once I became a homemaker. On his days off, he would either lounge around on the sofa all day or go out to play golf with his colleagues. We never went out together as a family, creating a one-sided operation at home. And there was another thing that troubled me, that is, my mother-in-law. Since I had quit my job, my mother-in-law, who lived nearby, would come to our house almost daily to make snide remarks. "You must be nice and relaxed not working. Once your husband goes to work, you're free to do whatever you want." Despite her insistence that I quit my job, this was her attitude. "Yes, I'll check if the plumbing is clean today. And have you resolved what we discussed yesterday? Can Nathan still not dress himself? Isn't it a problem with the parents' upbringing?" My mother-in-law would rant one-sidedly and constantly complain. "Without me, you can't properly manage the house or childcare." It's pathetic. She never seemed satisfied with anything I did, even though I managed the household chores without any slip-ups. "Are you cleaning properly? There's a lot of condensation in this house, and it causes mold." Despite her own home being cluttered like a junkyard, My mother-in-law oddly always had something to say about the cleanliness of our house. She was meticulous about the seasoning in the food, yet she never left any food I cooked uneaten. Not that I dislike housework or childcare, but the relationship with my mother-in-law was tiring, and I increasingly felt the desire to work outside the home. Housework and childcare have no definitive goals or right answers, but a job provides legitimate recognition. Above all, I originally loved working. With my son about to start preschool, I was considering re-entering the workforce. My son will start preschool soon, so I'm thinking about working part-time. When I finally brought it up with my mother-in-law and husband, she snapped at me with fierce anger. "What are you talking about? The child is still young. Stop talking about work. It's impossible for you." That's right. Mom is correct. Just stay home as you've been. My husband made a skeptical face, just like my mother-in-law. With the excuse that my housekeeping was not perfect, she opposed my employment, and my husband went along with it, making it extremely difficult for me to work outside. Bullying me seemed to be a form of stress relief for my mother-in-law, and I felt like I was her outlet. Even afterwards, I was not allowed to work, instead spending my days taking care of childcare, housework, and dealing with my mother-in-law. Since the birth of my son, there had been no marital relations with my husband. I wanted to give my son a sibling and broached the subject of having more children with my husband, but he evaded. "I'm not really interested in that anymore. I'm too tired from work every day." Before I was pregnant with my son, my husband had a strong desire. But since then, we had not discussed having more children. However, my mother-in-law complained. "Gina, you're home all day and have plenty of time. Hurry up and have another child. It's pitiful for your son to be an only child. Having children is also a wife's duty." Oh, how pathetic. She often made insensitive remarks without knowing the situation. I remained silently enduring her words. My mother-in-law lamented to my husband that we didn't have a second child. "Kevin, can't you have a second one?" "Mom, I'm trying, but maybe it's all about timing." My husband dodged her comments. "Then, the compatibility between you two must be bad," my mother-in-law said insensitively, and I was exasperated. One day, as time passed and I turned 40, my mother-in-law fell down the stairs and had to be hospitalized. She had been applying wax that she bought at a hardware store to the hallway and stairs, insisting it needed to be done even though no one asked her, and she slipped and fell. I was startled by a loud thud and a scream and rushed to find her sitting on her buttocks. I quickly called an ambulance, and she was taken to the hospital for an emergency visit. It turned out she had fractured her ankle and needed surgery. While I was accompanying her, she complained in front of the doctor. "My daughter-in-law is so sloppy. That's why I have to come and help out every day. If I couldn't walk, it would be a real problem." Despite her spiteful remarks, I was relieved to see that aside from her foot, she seemed healthy otherwise. "Call Kevin quickly, please." The mouthy mother-in-law. "Understood. Kevin is currently on a business trip, but I'll contact him right away." I tried contacting my husband, who was supposedly on a 2-day business trip, but couldn't reach him. I thought, this is troubling. There's also the matter of the consent form for the surgery. I need to tell my husband quickly. When I contacted his company, they told me he was on leave. I had never heard that my husband had taken a leave of absence. The secrecy about his actions made my heart flutter with unease. I didn't want to do this, but I had no choice. I hurriedly opened my husband's computer to check his messages. He had shared his account with the home computer. I was surprised at how easily I could access the messages. Since marrying my husband, I had been so busy with housework and childcare that I never considered he might be cheating. But then I found a familiar name in the messages. When I opened the chat, messages like, "I love you more than my wife," and "I'm so happy we could be intimate today," continued endlessly. Replies from the other person also included, "I love you" and "I want to be with you more." Apparently, they were currently traveling together. And, shockingly, my husband's affair partner was someone I knew well. Could my husband have been so careless as to think he wouldn't get caught? Or was I just oblivious? Incredibly, my husband's affair partner was none other than Mandy Hansen, the junior colleague. Kevin and Mandy had been having an affair for 13 years. It started around the time I was pregnant with my son. The betrayal by both of them was deeply shocking, and I was paralyzed for a while. Now aware of my husband's infidelity, I decided to look for more evidence. As I investigated, I discovered disturbingly that my husband had recorded his nighttime activities with his affair partner and saved them on his computer. It appeared that the partner was also enthusiastically consenting to the recordings, which made me feel even more nauseous. I fought the urge to delete everything and instead saved the data as evidence. I also hired a detective agency to investigate his conduct. Then, I contacted someone to look into his activities at work. While I was busy with the investigation, my husband returned home with his mistress. "Where have you two been?" "I've been trying to contact you about your mother," I responded calmly, pretending to be composed. "Mom just hurt her leg a bit. But there's something more important I need to discuss," my husband answered nonchalantly. "What important thing?" "Actually, Mandy and I have been together for a long time." Saying so, he held Mandy's hand. Next to him, Mandy was beaming with a broad smile. "It's been a while, Gina." "Yes, it's true. I'm pregnant with Kevin's baby now, and we were discussing our future together." My husband also placed his hand on Mandy's stomach, looking at her affectionately. "Actually, I'm about to be promoted at work. She's pregnant now, so I have no use for you. You'll agree to a divorce, right?" My husband demanded a divorce without any apology. I thought, do my son and I mean nothing to him? The selfishness of my husband and Mandy made my blood boil. How much more could they disrespect me? Just when I thought I had discovered my husband's affair, I was suddenly told about a pregnancy and a divorce, leaving my face twisted and my mind in utter disarray. She's just more compatible with me, both in personality and physically. Women really need to be good at being charming and sweet. My husband was grinning smugly. "To me, you're less of a wife now, more like a housekeeper." In front of Mandy, my husband boldly hurled these insults. "I've let you have an easy life as a homemaker all this time, so you must be enjoying it, right?" I thought, easy being a homemaker? He understands nothing. I was dumbfounded by his words. Hearing this, Mandy also said, "Really, being a homemaker must be nice. I envy you. And you know, other people's belongings look so appealing, making me just want them." He. She hinted that she seduced my husband herself and showed no remorse at all. I'm really happy right now. I got the husband of Gina I admired, and even a baby on the way. I'll share some of this happiness with you. Mandy made a triumphant face at me. "Is that so? Then I'll give something back to you too as well. I'll send a celebration gift." I said this in a calm voice, having moved past anger, and then operated my mobile phone. At that moment, my husband's phone buzzed too, and he checked an email from his work. "What? Why is this happening?" Kevin exclaimed loudly. Drawn by his reaction, Mandy also looked at his mobile phone. "Oh. No way." Mandy was equally shocked. In my phone, there was a video of my husband and Mandy in the act, which I had just sent to the company-wide staff email. I've shared it with everyone at the company as well. I send it via the employee email, so I think everyone is watching it by now. I spoke flatly, in contrast to my husband whose face was gradually turning pale. This email will be seen by the president too. What have you done? I thought you were long out of the company's matters. He was also surprised that I could contact the company. Do you remember my uncle? You've seen him at family gatherings, haven't you? I revealed that the company's executive vice president was my uncle. What? I've never met him face to face. He was your uncle. I had no idea, and My husband looked slightly panicked, but then said, "Well, it doesn't matter. I'll divorce you anyway and marry Mandy." He seemed completely oblivious to the gravity of the situation. He was clearly excited about his new life with her. You take our son and quickly move out of this house. From now on, this house is where I will live with Mandy. That was the last straw for me. Understood. I wish you two happiness. After that, my son and I immediately moved out and relocated to a new home. There was a reason I handed over the house so easily. The house, which my husband had bought without consulting me before our marriage, was actually a defective building. I had been considering moving out soon after consulting with my husband. The incident with my mother-in-law slipping was partly due to the floor wax, but the house itself was tilting. There were issues even with opening and closing the doors. My husband usually lounged around at home and had no interest in the condition of the house. There were places all around that needed repairs. Moreover, he was unaware that the attic storage was leaking, and it seemed like the damage from termites was spreading under the floor as well. Continuing to live there would lead to a health problem. I decided to inform my husband about this in writing later. Thus, the house he intended to make a new home with Mandy was to be let go. No doubt, my husband would be very frustrated. Later, the video included evidence that my husband and Mandy were on an affair trip, pretending to be on a business trip. The embarrassing video spread across the entire company, with my husband and Mandy as the stars. I gathered evidence of the affair and filed for divorce, demanding property division and child support. Afterward, feeling uncomfortable at the company, my husband resigned along with Mandy, saying, "I'm talented, so I can get a job anywhere. I'm not the old me anymore." A year later, Mandy appeared at my door holding a baby. For a moment, I couldn't recognize the person in front of me. The once doll-like cute Mandy had changed completely due to age and the fatigue of childcare, and she had gained a lot of weight. "Gina, I came today because I have something I need to ask. There's something strange about Kevin." A tired-looking Mandy. Strange in what way? I really didn't want to talk, but I responded calmly. He's been trying to reapply to several companies, but keeps making mistakes, and got fired during the probation period. Now, he's unemployed. Can you believe it? Recently, Kevin had even stopped looking for jobs. He just lounges around at home all day and does nothing. It's unbelievable. She was managing to raise the child somehow, but Kevin didn't help with childcare. And the mother-in-law who had been injured after falling down the stairs needed care, and had moved in with them. That crazy mother-in-law is living with us too, and I can't stand it. She says she was better off with the previous wife, even though she's depending on me for care. I can't believe it. Mandy seemed quite overwhelmed. The mother-in-law was still complaining about Mandy and even about working. Kevin used to hold a position and was capable at his previous company. He's unreliable and so different from before we married. Do you know anything about that? Oh, well, Kevin was never really good at his job. I calmly explained to her. What do you mean? He wasn't good at his job. Surprised, she exclaimed with her eyes wide open. Kevin's advancement was only because my uncle was the executive vice president of the company, not because of his own abilities. I calmly continued. Then, I revealed that I had been supporting his work even after retiring. I helped with data management and report creation at home because he struggled with these tasks. I even created the presentation materials and a proposal that catalyzed his promotion. His career at the company was possible only with my support behind the scenes. He opposed me working outside because I was helping him so much. However, over time, he took my assistance for granted and started to believe he was more competent than he actually was. He forgot that he could barely manage his work alone. It seems I spoiled him too much. When I explained the true extent of his incompetence to Mandy, she said, "If I had known he was such a pathetic man, I would have never married him. I'm overwhelmed just looking after myself and the child. I can't afford to care for his mother and him. I don't need such a useless man." Mandy completely lost her interest in Kevin. After ranting about her inability to support him, Mandy, burdened by their child, demanded a reduction in child support. I am a victim who was deceived by that man. Despite having pursued my husband herself, this was her excuse. Truly, she was reaping what she sowed. Mandy's audacity was typical, displaying her usual manipulativeness. But it no longer garnered any sympathy. You better be prepared to pay the full amount for child support. Oh, no. Please, Gina, forgive me. She persisted, but I firmly rejected her demands and sent her away. 8 years later, I turned 48, and my son, now 22, moved out upon getting a job. Kevin was quickly abandoned by Mandy after all. He tried to dodge paying child support but was caught by my uncle and ended up working on a distant fishing boat. My mother-in-law, lonely after her son was sent to the fishing boat, spent her old age alone. My son graduated from university, and Kevin managed to finish paying child support, though his health deteriorated. Meanwhile, Mandy returned to her parents' home after divorcing my husband. It seems her parents had to cover her payments, and now she's working hard to repay them. I hear this from my uncle, but considering all that has happened, I feel no pity. I only hope that my son becomes a self-reliant man, unlike his father. Fortunately, my son says he doesn't want to be like his father and is growing up to be dependable, taking care of his own matters. I also succeeded in starting my own small business. It's a company that supports mothers who struggle to work because they have young children. The company atmosphere is friendly and always full of laughter. I plan to continue walking my own path. What use are you even? What's that all of a sudden? What's the point of your existence? Suddenly, my husband started talking nonsense. He wasn't like this originally, but he turned into a verbally abusive man right after we got married. What are you going to do after asking that? It's decided. I want a divorce. However, he doesn't know something crucial. Before we got married, I lied to him about something. It was about me being the president of a company that makes over $300 million a year. So, what about our kid? Are you planning to abandon him? The word abandon is such an ugly word. You should be responsible and raise him. And you're still his father? From now on, I will be a father to a new family. I don't have time to bother with you guys anymore. My new child is about to be born. Little did I know he had even gotten someone pregnant. No need to hold back anymore, I suppose. I'd decided to pay him back more than twice what I endured till now. Since we got married, you haven't earned a single penny. You've been living comfortably on my money. I never asked you to do that. You have been a burden on me all this time. So, pay me severance money of $30,000. He really is scum. I thought I should tell him the truth now. Why should I? If anything, it should be the other way around. So this is a legitimate demand. Understand that. I wondered how stupid he could be. I could easily afford that. I'll pay you. $30,000 is nothing. What? I then revealed my true identity to my husband. Remembering his face at that moment still makes me laugh. And my revenge wasn't over yet. The real hell was just about to begin. I am Rachel Brown, the president of a certain company. I lived with my son and my husband John. I owe my current position to my family. Rachel, can you help me with the company? Me? I can't do anything. That's not true. I want you to help because you're my sister. I have a younger brother. 3 years into my career, he asked for my help while he was a college student and starting a company dealing with imported goods. Even if I helped, what should I do? I want your advice. You've always liked goods, after all. True, I've liked cute foreign trinkets since high school. Still, I had doubts about quitting my stable job to help him. Even then, my brother did not give up, and nearly a year had passed since he proposed the idea. Then, I'll help you. Really? I don't know how much help I can be, though. I resigned from my job in a way that seemed to appease my brother. 6 years later, working at my brother's company, I happened to meet my future husband, John. A friend invited me to a mixer. It was just to kill some time, but I was attracted to John's cool demeanor. How about we go out for dinner sometime? Sure, if you're okay with me. Before I knew it, I was inviting him. We started going out for meals and began dating. The comfort of being together led me to think about marriage. 3 years into our relationship, he proposed. I want you to marry me. With pleasure, if I'm good enough. Thus, we visited each other's parents. The greeting at his parents' house went well, and we were on our way to visit my family when. Once we're married, I want you to be a homemaker. What? A homemaker? Yeah. You said you work at a company that deals with goods, right? Yes, that's right. Sorry, but I want you to quit your job. I want you to work hard for me and our home once we're married. While I hesitated to answer, John seemed to get a bit irritated. Thinking I needed to respond quickly. Is that a problem? No, it's not a problem. Then, I'm counting on you. It's a promise. I was conflicted. And this was a turning point that would affect our future. As we were about 10 minutes from home, I secretly contacted my brother. John was so focused on driving that he didn't notice what I was doing. Since Aaron was living at our parents' house, I made the first move before he could say anything. So this is your parents' house, huh? Yes. My brother is here today too. I see. Got it. And, despite the nervousness, the marriage introduction went smoothly. We were treated to a meal. I'll go help out for a bit, John, you relax here. Thanks. I immediately went to where my brother was. What do you think I should do? I do want to work. You're talking about the homemaker thing, right? But we need you here. After all, it's thanks to you that we've grown so much in such a short period. Hearing that, my desire to continue working grew even stronger. Then, Aaron seemed to have an idea and clapped his hands. Right. Why not just keep quiet about it? What? That's going to get found out, won't it? It'll be fine. From now on, I'll ask you to do things that you can handle from home. Well, if that's the case. Actually, I have another favor to ask. A favor? Aaron seemed hesitant to speak. Imagining it was something bad, I braced myself. Could you become the president in my place? What? Me, a president? Why? This is something all the board members decided together. But aren't you the president, Aaron? That's why I'm asking you to be the president, so I can be the vice president. Please. My brother begged me. But I've only ever decided whether to purchase the proposed products. That's what's amazing. Most of the products you chose sold out immediately. That might be true, but besides, you'd be the president of a company that makes $300 million a year. I decided to accept his proposal. Choosing to become the president was more about not letting down the employees who chose me than the money. Thus, I decided to marry John while keeping a significant secret. And it was absolutely something that must not be revealed. We submitted our marriage registration a week after the greeting. Now that we're officially married, you'll follow my directions. Directions? Yes. I'm the head of this household. That's obvious. It was our first day in our new home. John began to adopt a high-handed attitude towards me. There had been a bit of a superior attitude before we married, so I suspected as much, but it proved to be true. I started to think about what would become of this. Hey, how about we go on a trip? A trip? We haven't had our honeymoon yet, and I thought this would be a good time. It was half a year after our marriage. Until then, I had been desperately fulfilling the role of a homemaker as John had demanded. Such a proposal could not make me unhappy. Then, where shall we go? How about Miami? You said before that you wanted to go there, right? Yes. I've always wanted to go. I was happy that he remembered that. 2 weeks later, we went on the trip, but John seemed somewhat absent-minded. Is something wrong? No, it's nothing. We have a plane to catch, let's go. Okay. Once we arrived in Miami, I genuinely enjoyed the trip. However, that night an incident occurred. When I woke up in the middle of the night, John, who should have been next to me, was not there. After a while, he returned to the room. Where were you? It doesn't matter where. Of course I'd worry if you're not beside me. Then he clicked his tongue softly. Listen. From now on, don't interfere with what I do. Who do you think is supporting this lifestyle? I thought about telling him the truth then, but I held back. Indeed, John was contributing a monthly sum for living expenses, but it was only a few tens of thousands. I felt it wasn't enough and had been supplementing it with my own money without letting him know. Then I noticed something else. I smell something sweet. What is it? A smell? There can't be any. What are you talking about? Although he was evasive, I was sure about the smell. At this point, I began to suspect that he might be involved with another woman. Maybe the trip was just a pretext, and he was actually meeting some woman. The trip lasted 4 days and 3 nights, but every night he went out somewhere. I tried to follow him, but he seemed wary of me, and I couldn't catch him. I thought, what was that trip even for? Eventually, I couldn't enjoy the trip and returned to everyday life. Whether it was good timing or bad, my pregnancy was discovered around this time. I immediately reported it to him. It seems I'm pregnant. Pregnant? I see. His reaction was very subdued. He didn't show any joy, and instead, he seemed rather bothered. I had thought that having a child would soften his attitude, but that was not the case. Even as my belly grew, he did not help with the household chores. Could you help out a little? I'm not feeling well today. Why do I have to do that? Can't you see I can hardly move in this condition? I'm troubled too. Why did you have to get pregnant on your own? I couldn't tolerate his attitude any longer. There's no way to speak like that. That's utterly irresponsible. My words didn't reach him. Raising a child costs money. You, as my wife, should understand that much. I didn't want to understand such a thing. Could there be a husband who would say such things to his pregnant wife? There shouldn't be. As time went by, I reached the due date and ended up giving birth alone. Isn't that too cruel? No, it's beyond cruel. When I went to show the newborn baby at my parents' house, my parents and my brother were furious. If it's like that, you should just divorce him. I agree with Mom. It'll only be hard on you if it continues like this. I know, but the baby was just born, so it's not that easy to just leave. If anything happens, consult us immediately. Yes. Thank you. Then, as I was about to leave, Aaron called out to me. Sorry, Rachel. I forgot to mention earlier, but we've started doing business with your husband's company. Really? I didn't know that. Yeah. I realized it a bit late myself. Well, that can't be helped. But that information might be useful someday. You better not show that expression to anyone else. Why not? Just a warning. After that, I returned home, but my husband still didn't participate in childcare. It had been that way since the baby was born. I had stopped expecting anything from my husband. The baby's crying is terrible, so sleep further away from me. A baby's job is to cry. It can't be helped. Then it's your job to stop the crying. My son and I ended up sleeping in the living room, the furthest room from the bedroom. He continued to complain about trivial things. What is this meal? Don't just throw something together. I didn't have much time today. You're always home and still don't have time? Don't joke with me. Saying that, he swept the dishes off the table. The plates fell to the floor, and the sudden noise made my son cry. My husband yelled, annoyed by the noise. It was a hellish scene. Never mind cleaning up. Just make him stop crying. Without saying anything, I took my son and went outside. I didn't want to stay in the house for another second. About 30 minutes later, when I returned home, John was nowhere to be found. I sighed and thought, why do I have to do all this? Physically and mentally worn out, I eventually had to be taken to the hospital. That day, after sending off my husband, I was in a remote meeting at home. During the meeting, I suddenly felt ill and lost consciousness. When I came to, I was lying in a hospital bed. My son. Where is he? It's okay. He's sleeping right here. I was relieved. Aaron, did you save me? Of course. You suddenly collapsed on the screen. I ran to your house immediately. Thank you. Then his expression turned serious. Isn't it about time you reached your limit? You might be right. This time, the timing was good, but if no one had noticed, it could have been irreparable. He was right. Considering my son, I thought I needed to make a decision soon. I took a deep breath. You're right, Aaron. I've been avoiding it for various reasons, but for my child's sake, I need to have a talk with John. That's definitely the best. If anything happens, Mom and I are here too. Thus, I decided that once I was discharged, I would bring up divorce with my husband. The diagnosis was exhaustion, so I was hospitalized for about 3 days before being discharged. When my son and I returned home, John, filled with anger, was waiting for us. Really, can't you even manage your own health? There's something I need to talk about. Talk? Do it later. I'm going out now. Rachel Brown, wait a minute. He left without saying where he was going, and he didn't return that day. He hardly ever came home after that, and I lost the opportunity to bring up the topic. Even when he did come home, there was no conversation like a married couple, and it became normal for him to take his belongings and leave again. That day, too, he went to work in the morning, and no matter how long I waited, he didn't come back. As I stayed up all night waiting to tell him about the divorce, I received a call from John's phone number. Hello? What time will you be coming home? But it wasn't his voice I heard on the other end. Are you his wife, by any chance? And who is it I'm speaking to? I'm Nicole. I'm dating John. I immediately understood that she was his affair partner. This was clear evidence, and I thought it would be good material for the divorce. I see. Huh? You're not surprised? That's unexpected. Well, I had a hunch. I responded calmly, suppressing my emotions. Then this will be quick. I'm seriously in love with John. So please divorce him quickly. Do you understand what you're saying? Of course. And he said he doesn't need someone useless like you. I see. I was about to hang up, but it seemed Nicole still had more to say. I decided to humor her. And guess where he is right now? I don't know. And I don't really want to know. Listen. He's in my room, sleeping like a child. Is that so? I don't really care about that now. That's why John dumped you. Despite being in an affair, Nicole laughed as she spoke, which was deeply irritating. Not only my husband, but this woman was also incredibly foolish. Birds of a feather flock together, I suppose. Anyway, he's staying over at my place tonight. You sleep alone there. With that, the call ended. If that's what she intended, I was ready for it too. True to Nicole's words, he did not come home. It wasn't until the next afternoon that he finally returned. You seemed to have quite a bit of fun last night. Huh? What are you talking about? Didn't you hear? A woman named Nicole called me from your phone. She shouldn't meddle in. His face, which had been sour, suddenly seemed to resign. She said you two are in love? Well, yeah. You're not denying it? What's the point? Then he sat on the sofa and looked up at the ceiling. Hey, what use are you even? What's that all of a sudden? What's the point of your existence? Suddenly, he started saying things that made no sense. It had started again. Perhaps by belittling me, he was satisfying his own self-esteem. If that was the case, it was hopeless. What are you going to do after asking that? Just checking. Just making sure you're aware. What if I wasn't aware? Laughing, he responded. Then it's divorce. Divorce, huh? Your mistress also told me to leave you. Then that's fine. You're useless to me anyway. Actually, you were useless even before that. It's fine to get a divorce, but you might regret it. Me? Regret? No way. He didn't know something important. Before we got married, I had lied to him about something. It was that I am the president of a company with an annual turnover exceeding $300 million. However, there was something else on my mind, our child. So, what about our kid? Are you planning to abandon him? The word abandon is such an ugly word. You should be responsible and raise him. And you're still his father? Hey. You just said it was okay to divorce, right? Besides, I'm going to be a father to a new family. I don't have time to bother with you guys anymore. The new one is about to be born. I couldn't believe he had gotten her pregnant. Nicole herself hadn't mentioned it, so I couldn't have imagined such a thing happening. Given this situation, there was no need to hold back from him anymore. I was determined to return everything he had done to me, doubled. Besides, you haven't earned a single penny since we got married. You've been living comfortably on my money. I never asked you to do that. You've been a burden to me all this time. So, pay me severance money of $30,000. He really is scum. I decided to tell him the truth. Why should I? If anything, it should be the other way around. So this is a legitimate demand. Understand that. There's no way I could understand that. It's for all the losses you've caused me. Well, it's not just that, but I'm being nice by not asking you for more since you don't have money. I wondered how stupid he could be. I could easily afford that. I'll pay you. $30,000 is nothing. What? I decided to reveal my true identity to my husband. He was the one who didn't understand. Thinking about what was to come, I couldn't help but feel excited. What are you gaping at? What are you thinking? Who knows? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. There's no way you can pay $30,000. Why would you think that? Because you quit your job to be a homemaker. It seemed his brain couldn't keep up. Actually, I never quit my job. You didn't quit? But you've been at home all this time. I can do it from home. If you can't believe it, I'll show you proof. I took a business card from my wallet and handed it to my husband. A business card? My name was written on it prominently as the CEO. No way. You're a CEO? I know it's hard for you to believe, seeing as you've underestimated me all this time. But this is the truth. I don't believe it. You're trying to trick me. I'm not in the mood for complications now. And another thing, my company's annual revenue is $300 million. $300 million. Yes. It's an amount you could never hope to earn, no matter how hard you try. John visibly despaired. However, my revenge was far from over. Sorry to see you despairing, but there's more. M.O. More? Your company started dealing with general merchandise recently, right? You've got to be kidding. When I heard it from my brother, I was shocked, but I thought it could be useful. The dealings were managed by him, but I am the head of the company. I think I'll have to cancel our dealings then. It seems impossible to continue with a company that employs someone like you. Wait, please. If you do that, I'll be fired. That's none of my concern. We're getting a divorce, after all. I apologize for everything until now. Right? From now on, I'll listen to whatever you say. What a man without pride. He looked down on people but could easily discard his pride for self-preservation. Thinking that I ever loved such a man made me feel pathetic. Unfortunately, that's not possible. Maybe you should start looking for another job now. Please. I'll break up with Nicole. But isn't a child on the way? Are you going to abandon that child too? I never wanted it. She was the one who insisted on having it. You know? You used to say the same thing to me. That is. The more he spoke, the more he tightened the noose around his neck. Anyway, my decision won't change. You can use this house as you like. Why don't you invite Nicole here? I left the house holding my son. I had no attachment to this house, and we could buy new things for ourselves. We decided to head to my parents' house first. What happened all of a sudden? I'll be staying here for a while. You've made up your mind. I had decided already, but it took quite a while because of various things. Take your time. After putting my son to sleep, I contacted my brother about the dealings with John's company that you mentioned. So, does that mean you're getting a divorce? Well, it's only a matter of time, but there are some things I need to take care of first. I figured it would come to this, so I'm ready. As expected of my brother. Then, I decided to have him handle the termination of the contract. I won't stop now. I'll make both John and his affair partner, Nicole, see hell. Then, there were several missed calls from him. I decided to answer, just for kicks. What's up? Where are you? I don't plan on telling you. Please, can you come back home? There's no way I'm coming back. Don't you get it? Also, it's been officially decided not to continue the contract with your company. Is that true? Yes. And I've arranged for my brother to tell your company everything. He had nothing more to say. Whatever you try to do, this fate won't change. You better tell Nicole too. Bye. After hanging up, I laughed out loud. The scenery that had seemed so gloomy before suddenly felt brighter. There's still a final touch left, but for now, I decided to savor the current situation. 3 days after arriving at my parents' house. I've taken care of everything you asked for. You can relax now. Thank you. Now, I'll take care of the rest. Got it. Let me know if you need anything. I'm counting on you. That same day, I went to consult with a lawyer. Given his behavior, there was a good chance he would be difficult about the divorce. I told the lawyer about everything up to now, including the affair and the fact that he had gotten the other woman pregnant. With that much evidence, the lawyer immediately proceeded with the formalities. I thought, it looks like everything will be okay now. The next day, the president of John's company came to apologize personally. It was only natural, given that an employee's actions had blown up the contract. After hearing more, it turned out he had been fired, just as I expected. What happened to him afterward was unclear. And then, you were here after all. I never thought you would come all the way here. John had come to my parents' house to see me. I thought this might be the place. Give me another chance, will you? He was still trying to cling to me. There's no chance left. You've had plenty of them until now. It's a plea for a lifetime. Engaging with the man in front of me was just a waste of time. All I wanted was to be free from him. That's impossible. And don't come here ever again. Besides, you have Nicole and your child to think about. I'll handle that. You better not say things you can't accomplish. It'll only cause more trouble. Then, with my brother's help, we drove him away from the house. Some months later, the divorce was finalized. Of course, I demanded property division and child support from John and Nicole. The reason for the claim was to make them suffer. From what I heard, John was eventually dumped by Nicole, who also demanded child support. All that was left for him was his debt. It was a fitting outcome for such a scoundrel. Now things have finally calmed down. Then, as president, keep up the good work. I know. I'll work hard to pay back for all the trouble caused. Now that I no longer need to hide my status as a president, we moved into a high-rise apartment. From now on, I want us all to live a happy life together.